Hey everyone, GameCube with Fries here with another collection video, and this time I'm going to be taking a look at my PS3 collection. And next to the GameCube, the PS3 is probably one of my favorite systems. I feel like we got a lot of really great games this past generation. Some really nice exclusives on the PS3. Honestly, I don't own a whole ton. There are still quite a few games on the system that I need to pick up, even with the new generation of consoles out. But I figure we might as well start going through here with one of my favorites, BioShock Infinite, which also comes with, oh, there's a little bit of glare there, hold on, which comes with the original BioShock. And these are both terrific games, although for somewhat different reasons. The original BioShock has some really great exploration, a wide variety of weapons to choose from. The plasmas are all really cool. It gives you a lot of control over how you play. BioShock Infinite is a lot more action-oriented, but I feel like because of this, the combat mechanics are much better. The exploration has been streamlined a little bit, but not to the point where it feels completely dumbed down. There are some sections of the game that are very linear, just straight-up combat for like almost an hour. I think there's like almost a 2-hour stretch where there's just nothing but combat kind of late in the game, which is kind of a bummer, but honestly it didn't bother me a whole lot just because of how enjoyable I found the combat to be. And the story was really good too. In both of these games actually. BioShock 1, the story kind of dips a little bit in the third act, but BioShock Infinite kept me hooked all the way to the end. Same with the Burial at Sea DLC. Really fantastic game. Highly recommended. Borderlands. I initially played this on Xbox 360. The same can actually be said of about half of my PS3 collection. But when I first played this, I was very impressed. For a while, it was actually probably one of my favorite games of this past console generation. It just blends all these different elements together very well. It almost feels like what you'd get if Diablo 2 was a first-person shooter. There's a lot of emphasis on loot, doing side quests to level up. Just really fantastic stuff. The co-op in this game is incredible. One of my favorite shooters. It's up there with BioShock. And here we have Borderlands 2, which I think mechanically is a better game than Borderlands 1, but it does feel a bit bloated, like they tried too hard to make it this bigger, better sequel. And it is a really good game, and I feel like I maybe prefer it to the first one, but I'm not sure. Like, I kind of prefer the first one, but I kind of prefer this one too. They kind of balance each other out. Like, I feel like Borderlands 1 has a more manageable amount of content to it, where Borderlands 2 plays better, but it can be overwhelming, especially alone, to do every single side quest, because it hits a point to the mid to late game where, you know, for every one story quest you get, you'll get like 5 or 10 side quests, and it gets a little overwhelming. But I enjoy this quite a bit. I'm definitely gonna pick up the pre-sequel at some point too. Haven't quite gotten around to that yet. Castlevania Lords of Shadow Collection, which has the original Lords of Shadow, both pieces of DLC, and Castlevania Mirror of Fate HD, which was originally a 3DS game. And this is pretty good stuff. I remember when Lords of Shadow first came out, I wasn't really that big on it. I didn't like the idea of Castlevania going into more of a hack-and-slash direction, but, you know, as I gave it another chance, and, you know, as time went on, I actually grew pretty fond of this game. This is one of my favorite just action games. I don't really look at it as a Castlevania game because it really isn't, but it just as an action game, it does so many things right, it's just hard to outright hate it. I actually like this game quite a bit. Mirror of Fate is good too. It kind of brings back some of that Castlevania feel, and it's kind of interesting because it takes the Lords of Shadow combat, based largely around combos and stuff, and brings it into a 2D plane, and it feels really nice. It actually does feel a bit like a Castlevania game. I think they recaptured some of the atmosphere with Mirror of Fate. two really good games. And this was a bit of a polarizing game when it came out earlier this year, Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2, which I personally enjoyed a lot. I actually like this better than either of the other Lords of Shadow games. I feel like they took the really good combat from Lords of Shadow, brought in like an actual controllable camera, and actually made it feel a bit more like a Castlevania game, or at least more Metroidvania games. Those are the ones I generally tend to prefer. But there is a bit more exploration. The areas are all interconnected. It is a bit jarring swapping back and forth between the city and the castle, and the story really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's actually kind of anticlimactic the way they wrap everything up. But I think just as a whole, this game is really, really fantastic. Like, it does have some problems. Like, the stealth segments are terrible. But I actually really enjoyed this a lot more than the first Lords of Shadow, and it seems most people think quite the opposite. This game is regarded as being generally pretty inferior, which, I don't know, I disagree with that. Thought it was really good. Demon's Souls, one of the main reasons I wanted a PS3 for so long. I'm a huge fan of Dark Souls. I love this game, not quite as much. I feel like there were a few things that they tried to really get across in this one that they nailed a little better in Dark Souls. But this is still a fantastic game. Probably the best PS3 exclusive I've played so far. I haven't played many, but this is definitely one of the main reasons I wanted one. And if you're a fan of, the Dark Souls games and you haven't given this a shot yet, by all means, definitely pick it up. Speaking of, here we have Dark Souls, which is my favorite game of all time. I first played this on Xbox 360. Of course, I got it again when I got my PS3. Absolutely terrific. Just the way all the levels kind of blend together, and it creates this sort of big interconnected world. And just the way the combat works, it's a lot slower, a lot more methodical than a lot of other modern action RPGs. The boss fights, for the most part, are fantastic. And there's just this really heavy atmosphere to this game. I know a lot of people don't really care for it, but then again, a lot of people really like it. I really like the way the story is more implied than told. I don't know, they really nailed it with this one. It feels like the world is made a lot more convincing. It's not all broken up like it was in Demon's Souls. It feels a bit more balanced than Demon's Souls. I feel like this is just one of, I don't know, if you like third-person adventure games or action RPGs, this is fantastic, especially if you like a good challenge. Terrific. I love it. On the other hand, we have Dark Souls 2, which came out earlier this year. This was kind of a disappointment, honestly. I really feel like the new team that they've got together to make Dark Souls 2 really dropped the ball. It isn't as cohesively designed as Dark Souls 1. It feels, again, it's not completely broken up like into a hub like Demon's Souls was, but it does feel a bit more broken up. You have a couple different directions you can go off to. It feels more, well, this goes here, more cut and dried than Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 1 had a very organic, flowing world, but Dark Souls 2, honestly, it feels very video gamey. I know it's kind of a weird term, but I don't know, like the bosses weren't as good, none of the enemies or just designs in general were as memorable. It just felt very bland and underwhelming, especially for a Souls game. Not a terrible game by any means, just doesn't quite live up to its predecessors. Definitely looking forward to Bloodborne, though. We got the original director and everything working on that one. DuckTales Remastered, and this is not the physical version. I believe they did come out with a physical disc version for all platforms, but this is the boxed version with the code inside that has the pin and everything that was was, I believe, only released for PS3. I think like a month or so before like the disc version came out. This is terrific. I've never really played the original NES DuckTales game, but after playing this, I want to. This is one of the best platformers I've played in a long time. Had a ton of fun with this. It's really short, but really replayable. It's got fun level design, a pretty good soundtrack considering it tackles a lot of genres I don't really care for. They're just really catchy, and I'm a big fan of like sort of cartoon animated sprites, like in the newer Rayman games. I feel like this is just terrific. One of the better platformers to come out recently. Definitely worth picking up. I think it's available on pretty much every platform except like the newest ones, which I don't think they were out when DuckTales Remastered came out. We have The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, and the case is for the original edition, but this is actually the Game of the Year edition that includes the Shivering Isles DLC. This is probably one of my favorite RPGs. I absolutely love this game. It is a bit short. You've pretty much seen everything there is to see by the time you hit level 20, and you can do pretty much every quest line on one character. But I don't know, I feel like just the graphical style and the worlds, it's all just really fun to explore. The mechanics feel great. This is, I believe, the only Elder Scrolls game I've played where I've at least tried to make like at least one of every kind of major character. Like I've done melee characters, I've done ranged characters, I've done stealth characters. I'm pretty sure I've done a mage at some point in this one too, and I usually, like, just because there's always one mechanic that feels limited in one of them, I've never really done that in any of the other ones. I just feel like this is the one where they really nailed being able to, you know, accommodate a whole bunch of different play styles, even if it does mean that in terms of length and challenge it is a bit trimmed back. But I've had a lot of fun with this game. One of my favorites. And here we have The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, and this is the Legendary Edition, which includes all of the DLC. This is another really great game. I don't know if I like it quite as much as Oblivion. There are things that it does better than Oblivion. In terms of challenge, there's definitely more. You can definitely level up much higher and still face enemies that are a threat. It introduces more enemy types through the course of the game. The world feels a lot more organic. Oblivion, I really like the overworld in that game, but it is pretty much just this big forest valley. Skyrim does have variety. Like each part of the overworld feels distinctly different from the last, and you'll have a lot of really neat moments stumbling across stuff as you explore the world. I feel like the one aspect where this game is weaker is actually the quest lines. A lot of the quest lines actually feel pretty weak compared to Oblivion's. They very much feel like, well, just go here, go there, do this, do that. They were like that in Oblivion, but they just felt more interesting, like the way they were incorporated. Like each questline had a story, and it felt natural in Oblivion, but it almost felt forced in this. Like they were trying to push across some kind of story that just connected to everything in some bigger way, and I don't know. I enjoy this a lot, though. If you like Oblivion, you'll probably like this. We have Fallout 3 Game of the Year Edition, which has all of the DLC. When I first played Fallout 3, I didn't know what to make of it. I tried to get into it repeatedly over the years and never really was able to. But I finally picked it up on PS3 again. I said, alright, I'm going to give it one last try, and I loved it. I really wound up getting into it. You really have to approach this differently than you would an Elder Scrolls game. You have to look at it. In the early game, it's almost more like a survival game. You're sort of scrounging up these supplies, just trying to make it by. But then you'll kind of hit this point later on where once you're in the higher levels, you'll start having this huge arsenal of weapons built up. Enemies become less of a problem. It's more so the amount of enemies the game starts throwing at you in the late game. But especially in the DLCs themselves, from what I've played, aren't really that impressive, but they do add some really nice new equipment. Like, some of the best weapons and armor in the game I found come from the DLC. I finished, I think, the majority of the quest lines in the main game, and I played through the first 3 pieces of DLC, and then I got kind of burnt out after that. I never finished Point Lookout or Mothership Zeta, but one day I'll get around to it. Really great game. Here we have Fallout New Vegas Ultimate Edition, which, again, this has every piece of DLC, usually with these open. This one wasn't made by Bethesda, but with these Bethesda-style games, I generally like to get the most complete edition possible because the DLC is usually worth it. And I haven't managed to set aside enough time to really sit down and play this as much as I did Fallout 3. I've been meaning to, but I keep getting distracted. But from what I've played, it's good. It does a few things differently from Fallout 3. From what I've heard, it's closer to the old Fallout games, but it still uses the Fallout 3 engine. So I guess I'll just find out when I get around to playing it some more. Grand Theft Auto 5? I almost said 3. I love this game, and that's really strange because I've never been a fan of Grand Theft Auto. I've played 3, a little bit of Vice City, and I actually did play a fair bit of San Andreas at one point, and I never really cared for any of them. I don't know, it never felt like there was any real reason for them to have these big environments. Like, the story missions weren't particularly interesting, they were overly hard. I hated the way that the game would just boot you out of the mission if you died once, and it wouldn't just make you restart, it would make you go back on the map, find the trigger for the quest. This one just feels a lot more streamlined. Like, the missions actually have checkpoints, they're actually fun. The story is actually pretty entertaining. It's not necessarily intelligent or anything, but it's fun. I definitely enjoyed the characters, especially Trevor and Michael. Franklin never really struck me as being that interesting, but I'm getting into a whole other tangent now. I never finished the story mode. I've been wanting to, but I feel like if I revisited it at this point, I would just be absolutely terrible at it. It's been so long since I played, and this is a game where you really have to kind of focus. Like, there's a lot of mechanics you have to learn. There's a lot of really crazy stuff that the game will have you do. Like, I remember one mission you had to, like, hover a helicopter above this construction site for a certain amount of time, and it was kind of difficult to keep it aligned without crashing into everything. The online mode is a lot of fun too. I think just as a whole, this is one of the best sandbox games I've played, and it's interesting considering I've never really liked any of the other GTA games, but they really nailed it with this one. If you haven't played it already, I believe it's coming to the next gen systems next month and then PC next year. The Last of Us. And I actually didn't know what to expect from this game. I wasn't expecting to like it, but I borrowed it off of a friend. I played it for a while, and I wound up buying it off of that same friend because I loved it so much. I actually really liked this game. The story's good. It's not really the best story, or really, I think, as good as a lot of people say. I think this game's greatest strength is the way it uses stealth and survival mechanics. Like, this isn't really a horror game, but I would say that it's probably one of the better, like, survival games that's come out in a really long time. It actually does force you into some tough situations. It limits your ammo. It feels like a survival horror, even though the focus is more on drama than horror. So, I don't know, it's really surprisingly well done. I've actually been thinking about checking out the Uncharted games after playing this, but I'm not sure. But I will say that this is really, really good stuff. And here we have Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, which has Metal Gear Solid 2, 3, and Peace Walker, as well as the original MSX Metal Gear games. Are included as bonuses on Metal Gear Solid 3. And I have played 2 and 3 before on the PS2. They're both really good games, I think. I think Metal Gear Solid 3 might be my favorite in the series. Peace Walker was really good, though. I mostly bought this for Peace Walker because I had never played it before, and I refused to play it on the PSP because I hate the control scheme for that system. But I played Peace Walker on this. It was fantastic, really different for a Metal Gear Solid game. Even if it was a bit of a grind to unlock, like, the true final boss. I thought that was a little bit stupid. But as someone who's enjoyed the Metal Gear Solid games for a really long time, I thought that Peace Walker was really good, and that this is a really nice collection to get. You get one of the best games in the series, Peace Walker, which is kind of an interesting departure, and then 2, which was really interesting way to follow up on the first game. Really highly recommended if you haven't played any of those games before. Or just if you're like me and you don't want to play Peace Walker on the PSP. Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots, another one of the main reasons I wanted a PS3. For years, the only Metal Gear Solid games I'd played had been the first 3, because I actually didn't have a PS3 until about last year. And this is really good. The story is, in true Metal Gear Solid fashion, absolutely over the top. It is also a bit overwhelming how many cutscenes there are. The ending alone was like, it felt, I don't know if it really was, but it felt like it was almost an hour. Like the ending cutscene really, really drags on. Like it feels like it's trying way too hard to wrap up all these loose ends in this batshit insane plot. But I liked it a lot. I liked the camouflage system. It was kind of a streamlined version of the camouflage from Metal Gear Solid 3. Like, really mechanically, this feels a lot like 3, but I think it kind of lacks just really the interesting environments and memorable boss fights that 3 had. This one definitely does have some memorable moments of its own. The Metal Gear Rex or Ray fight, I forget what it was, where you're basically inside of a Metal Gear and you have to fight another Metal Gear. That was one of the highlights of the game for me. But I really did enjoy this a lot, even if the story is a bit crazy. I came to expect that because, I mean, look at what series it's a part of. You can't pretend that the previous Metal Gear games were absolutely deadpan serious, because they weren't. And here we have Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes. Not really worth the price of admission, and this was only a $30 game. I really do feel like this should have just been a part of the Phantom Pain, but I can kind of see where Kojima was coming from, where he wanted to get some part of it out to tide people over. I just think that the way it was done was a little misguided, because basically what we have here is the prologue chapter to the next Metal Gear game released as a full retail package for $30. It's not terrible. It's really good. I actually think gameplay-wise, this is going to be the best Metal Gear Solid game. The mechanics feel a lot weightier. It actually feels like it's evolved from the past entry, whereas 4 kind of felt more or less exactly like 3. I feel like there's a lot of promise for how the Phantom Pain is going to turn out here, but I really do think this should have been just a free demo. I was expecting a little more out of it. I mean, it's not bad. I'm glad I bought it. I'm glad I played it. I would just say that maybe hold out on buying this one until it gets a little cheaper. It might be. I actually don't know how much it is now. Rayman Origins, one of the best platform games to come out in the last few years. This is another one of many games on my PS3 that I initially played on Xbox 360, and I loved this when I first played it. I first played it a few months after it came out, picked it up again on PS3 when I got one, and it's just as terrific. The gameplay flows really nicely. It almost feels rhythmic in a way, like you have these enemies lined up in a certain way. As you get more powers, you can like run and jump off of walls, and it incorporates all these elements of different platformers that you'd never think you'd see in a Rayman game after playing the original Rayman on PS1, which in comparison is almost like a really clunky, stiff 2D platformer, whereas this one, the wall jumping almost feels like Ninja Gaiden. You're like running around on ceilings and across walls like in the old Sonic games. It just takes the best elements of a lot of old 2D platformers and incorporates it into this really, really well done, well animated 2D platformer. One of my favorite ones to come out recently. I also have Rayman Legends on Wii U. Resident Evil 5. I don't think this is a terrible game, but I do think it's pretty weak compared to Resident Evil 4. It basically feels like kind of a bland, toned-down repeat of 4. It's shorter. It's much more action-oriented. There isn't nearly as much atmosphere or interesting boss fights. I mean, this game does have some good boss fights, but it just feels like more of a cut-and-dried action game, which I feel like could have been good if they had went all the way with it, but they also kept the sort of old tanky Resident Evil 4 controls, so it kind of feels like it's trying to be two different games at once, and it's honestly kind of a mess. It's not terrible, but it is probably my least favorite game in the mainline Resident Evil series. And wrapping up here, Resident Evil 6. This game is honestly kind of a guilty pleasure for me. A lot of people hate this game, but I think it's fantastic, actually. This actually brings up what I was just saying about 5. Instead of trying to make it be two games at once, they just said, fuck it, we're going to make it an action game. And it actually works really well. The actual free camera control, the gun mechanics are a lot better. There are a lot more scripted events and set pieces and some unnecessarily hard bits. And the plot is ridiculous as usual. I don't get why that's a complaint. Resident Evil's plot has been ridiculous since the beginning. But I feel like this game gets a lot of undue hate just because people won't look at it for what it is. It's an action game. It's not a horror game, but for what it is, it's actually really good. So anyway, that was my PS3 collection. Another bit of a long-winded video. But this is one of the bigger collections I have, and even then it's not that huge. So, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you all next time.